to our 2024 Directors Close-Up Spirit Awards edition. I'm Maria Raquel Bossi, Senior Director of Education and International Initiatives at Film Independent. Before we start, I want to take a moment to thank all the partners that make Film Independent important work possible. Thank you to this year's incredible supporters of the Directors Close-Up, the Directors Guild of America, SAG Indie, and IMDb Pro. And thank you to our 2024's Film Independent Spirit Awards supporters, principal partner IMDb Pro, and official partners Boulevard Frontier Whiskey, Fiji Water, Petit Fleu Champagne, and Stella Artois. We so appreciate your support and devotion to the independent film community. Tonight, we celebrate the filmmakers behind some of the most exciting new series to hit the small screen in the past year. They have been nominated for Best New Scripted Series category at the Spirit Awards. Here with us are Zoe Lister-Jones of Slip. Zoe, where are you? Hey, welcome.
Thank you.
Boots Riley of I'm a Virgo. Hey, Boots. How are you? Ajani Salmon of Dreaming While Black. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Yes, great. How about yourself?
I'm good. Just
Next up, we have Jake Schreier of Beef. Hi, Jake. Welcome.
Ready.
And last but not least, we have Jake Szymanski, of Jury Duty. Welcome, Jake.
Hello.
Welcome to all of you, and congratulations to all of you on your great work this year. And now I would like to introduce our moderator. Is a longtime friend of Film Independent, Wendy Calhoun. She's writer and EP of shows like Prodigal Son, Empire, and Justified. Wendy Calhoun. Wendy, where are you? Can see you.
I'm right here.
Great to see you. Thank you for doing this. It's always great to have you moderating. So you guys, I can assure you're in for a great ride. And take it away, Wendy. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Welcome, everybody. I'm here with a group of incredible filmmakers, so I'm so excited to get to speak with them and hopefully answer some of your questions. I think we might want to start off, though. I'll just call you out one by one to tell us a little bit about your particular piece that's up for an award. Fingers crossed for everybody, and then how you hope it resonates with viewers. I'll start with Jake. Talked about Jury Duty for us.
Oh, sure. Gosh, it's been this long. I still almost don't know how to describe it. Jury Duty is kind of a mix between like a mockumentary style sitcom and also a mix of like a real documentary. And also a mix of, I think people think it has like prank show elements, although we don't view it that way. So the idea was kind of like, what if you made a show like The Office, but Jim wasn't an actor and didn't know you were making a TV show? That was like kind of the goal. Like, can you put someone on a hero's journey who doesn't know they're making a show? So it was kind of a big experiment.
Love it. Zoe, tell us about Slip. First of all, where can we see Slip? We want to know that. That's already come up. And also tell us about it and then how you hope it resonates with viewers.
Slip is it's a show that follows a character named May who's feeling trapped in her marriage and ends up sleeping with someone else one night and then wakes up to discover that she's now married to the guy she cheated on her husband with. And over the course of the series, learns that through orgasm, she's being teleported into a multiverse. And so she's sort of, fucking her way into parallel lives and relationships. You can't see it anywhere. It was a Roku original, and we can get into the nature of the business, but they removed it from the platform to save money on taxes. So it's a strange moment to have this recognition and not be able to really share it with anyone.
Oh, well, we're glad it's on the portal. Everyone can watch it on the Film Independent portal.
Yeah.
I will ask this though, when you came up with the concept, what were you hoping to say to audiences? How did you hope it would resonate?
I was interested in exploring like the nature of desire, and when I guess the nature of like insatiability and how we can feel fulfilled and present in our lives without always sort of grasping for more. There's like a sort of Buddhist um, theme that is drawn throughout the show. And I was interested in exploring female sexuality in a way that felt really unapologetic and that was really focused on female sexual pleasure in a way that I felt was lacking in in popular media. So yeah, I think seeing what that looked like on screen, especially as I was, putting my body forward as as the subject of that exploration, and also directing it through a female lens.
So brave. Wow, strong. Boots, tell us about I'm a Virgo.
I'm a Virgo is, I don't know, an absurdist dark comedy about a 13-foot tall Black man who lives in Oakland, California. And let's see, it stars Jarrell Jerome in the lead. A lot of good performances, Walton Goggins. I'm not going to keep naming everybody because I'm not forgetting people, but I'll be on here for a long time. But
Love Walton.
Sarah Young, Brett Gray, Olivia Washington, Carmen Ejogo, Mike Epps. We have a great cast, and we did everything. Well, not everything, but we did a lot of the effects practically. So basically, just forced perspective, puppets. We did everything just to make it fun to do, and the question of something about like what I hope people get from it or something.
Yeah. How do you hope it resonates? Because there's
more
going on there, right?
I come out of music, and before that I come out of organizing, and I'm always trying to take people through an experience that changes the way that they look at the world. So just a small goal there. And not only the way that they look at the world, I'm hoping that people get inspired to get involved in changing the world around them. And that's the journey that the characters in it are involved in. But yeah.
Yes. So Johnny, I have to say, I often dream while Black, and I would love for you to talk about your series and where what you were hoping would resonate from it.
So I guess Dreaming Whilst Black is set in London, and it's about a young Black filmmaker who's trying to make it in the film industry. But more focuses on I guess, not so much making the art itself, but the struggle that artists go through in order to make the art. It's a comedy. It's fun. It's kind of all over the place, as the dreaming title suggests. But to be honest, in terms of what I guess for this season, we really just wanted to prove that normal is entertaining. Like, it don't have to be like, from a UK perspective at least, like, it don't have to be like a gang thing. Like, regular Black folk are here too. So, but also I guess artistically is to interrogate like the exploitation of art in terms of like, as storytellers, we kind of consume stories from the world and then project it onto screen. But like, how much of that is inspiration and versus how much of that is exploitation? So yeah, I think that's what the show kind of presents in a comedy. Yeah, I guess.
I just realized we have 2 Jake S's. This is crazy. Jake, talk to us about Beef.
Yeah, Beef is a show about two people who get in a road rage incident, and sort of through their shared rage at each other, like find a form of connection that's sort of been eluding them in their own lives, that they've felt sort of separate from. It's always very scary to speak for Sonny about what he would want people to take away from the show, but I think we talked about certain ideas of connection and sort of feeling this void, and that that void can't really be erased, but can be made more bearable in finding that connection through others. And I think that was something that was at the core of what he wanted people to take from it.
So for those of you who were involved with the sale and development process of the pieces, can you talk a little bit about that and what maybe surprised you as you went out to try to pitch your shows?
Well, so with me, I was at Sundance 2018, and we sold Sorry to Bother You, but we didn't sell it for as much as I wanted to sell it for. And so I was broke and needed a job. And because I had for years promised people that I was going to pay them back, once I sold this hit movie, right? And sold the hit movie and was actually needing to get a job. And WME approached me and said, hey, if you got ideas, we can get you paid. And so I was like, I got ideas for days. And so I said, 13-foot tall black man with lives in Oakland. That's all I had was that. And they put me in meetings. Everybody was like, let's do it, right? I really didn't have a script. What I do is I look for a contradiction, right? And there's, if you see the show, you'll understand it has to do with what he thinks about himself versus what the world would think. The last thing people care about a 13-foot tall black man is that he's a Virgo, but he cares about it, right? And so I was, like that was that. I ended up finding an alignment with Michael Ellenberg from Media Res, and we they gave me money to write the pilot, and we took it out. And I was really, I was surprised like that people were down not only with the idea, but the process, because basically a lot of people told them that that's just the way you don't do it. It costs too much to do it that way, all of those things. And so that was something that was hard to sell, but for me, that's what kind of gets me activated, is like this difficulty. And also, I think that's also what you feel on screen, is you feel someone, you feel people when they pay attention to the details and they care about these things. And nothing against CGI per se, but I think when we see it so much, it makes us think about a factory. Like this thing was just put together and they handed it off to these other folks who figured out how to slap that on. And, I always say you can make with CGI, you can make a building stand up, walk over and take a shit, and it wouldn't be amazing. And that should be amazing, right? But
should.
we're not. So it's all about creating a visceral quality. And that's also something I bring from music, is like trying to make people feel a thing and it to be messy and, all of that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Right.
Boots, I'm a Virgo so much, and it's such a visual masterpiece what you did.
Thank you so much. And
yeah,
and I just saw the thing for the trailer for Slip. I hadn't seen it. I don't have Roku, but now it's on the portal. I have to watch it. But I have to say, this is something, maybe this shouldn't be talked about out here, but I think it should. If your stuff is not available on regular things. Are you okay with people going and on the Bay of Pirates?
Ripping it.
We
I'm
did.
like, anyone I meet on the street, I'm like, give me your number, I'll send you a link. I'm like, I'm standing on corners. I mean, yeah, do what you have to do to watch it. It's honestly, I mean, we're trying to take it out and find a home for it
Oh, okay. So
now,
wait till
but
she gets it.
but yeah, I mean, it's I'm like, let the people see it, however they need to see it.
It's
Then
such
do
a
you sell it
weird,
on-
it's such a
did you-
weird new place we're in where the hard part used to be getting something made, and now you can get it made and you don't know if people will see it. Like people will
Yeah.
buy your show, a network will buy your show, and there's a chance that they only put it up for a little bit and take it down. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a crazy new problem to have, that after you do the battle to get it made, that it might just disappear. I know many people that's happened to.
Yeah, it's a wild feeling. But yeah, I think that it's a strange moment, obviously in our industry and in the marketplace. There's a contraction that I think is definitely hard for artists. I'll say the development process of this, though, I mean, it speaks to the nature of the hustle, but it's like I wrote all 7 episodes of Slip in quarantine. And I did that because I wanted to I didn't want to be fucked with, which is like unheard of. Like, everyone was like, well, no, people want to have their stamp, they want to have a development process so that they can feel a certain amount of creative ownership as well. But and I took it out and just was like, here's all the scripts, read all of them. And I didn't want to tell anyone what the premise was, even because I wanted them to read the scripts as though they were watching the series. And I mean, it is a risky series and it is really sex forward. But yeah, nobody bought it. And so then there was about a year of just the heartache that is that is a part of this, always, of going like, well, I guess that's dead. Like, I guess this thing that I put so much of myself into will never see the light of day. And my TV agent was like, what if it's a movie? But it's just, I was like, it's not a movie, it's a series. Like that's in its bones, it's in its DNA. And then I started developing, I sold a show to HBO with Dakota Johnson's company, Tea Time. And one of her producers was like, do you have any like comedies? Because this was a drama about cults. And she said, do you have any comedies that are like Sex in the City, but like with like a sci-fi element? And I was like, what? And there are
Like,
those
actually.
yeah, I was like, funny you should ask. And then it was interesting because like this producer, Katie O'Connell, she really thought outside the box. We had gone to the main players in streaming, and Roku was new, and the executive at Roku named Colin Davis, who had come from Quibi, read it and was like, yeah, we're making this, and he gave me the green light on all 7 episodes without one script note, which was what I had dreamed of. That's why I wrote it in the way that I wrote it. But it's unheard of like that. I never expected that. And so it is an interesting, these like life and death cycles that we go through as artists, of that the project died, but then it found a life in the way that I had intended it to find its
Yeah,
life.
the intention was there. Amazing.
Yeah, and they really let me make the exact show I wanted. It felt like making an independent film. I mean, it also, had the budget of an independent film, but then my dream executive left, and and now here we are.
And you also have some great performances, including your own.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
Thanks.
Anybody else want to speak to that, or I can keep funneling through?
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting. You called it sex forward, and we have like a 12-minute sex scene in our show, and there is some, I don't know, is it real or is this media driven, this like resistance to sex in movies and TV these days. I mean, did you find anything around that, like on the marketing of it or anything like that when you put it out?
Well, we didn't have any marketing.
Yeah.
Just listen, you guys, let's just be real, right? But yeah, I mean, I think that it is I think that's why I wanted to, I mean, I think everyone here was looking to push boundaries with all of the shows that we made. And I'm honored to be a part of this group of artists. Like, and I think when you're doing that, it's going to be hard because I think especially with female sexuality, that's a tough sell in this society. That damn patriarchy just won't quit. So I found that the media, like, people were interested in discussions around female sexuality, especially because I had directed all of the episodes and they wanted to talk about what starring and directing. I mean, there's like a salaciousness to it that I think sparked the media's interest. But I think that part of probably its disappearance on a platform like Roku has to do with the fact that it was sex forward, and that that I think while women's bodies have been exploited and objectified throughout history in media, I think when you try to, like, I was really interested in creating, like you, Boots, like a sex scene that lasted a long time. So I mean, the set piece in every episode is a sex scene, because that is her mode of transportation. So I was interested in pushing the boundaries of also making the focus really be on the female orgasm rather than what female sexuality has often looked like through a male lens, which I think, yeah, I think it does ruffle some feathers for sure.
Yeah, it was great. I didn't feel any sense of objectification that I often feel when I'm
Mm.
watching, a sex forward kind of program, probably
Thanks.
because it's coming from, a different lens.
Thanks.
Jake, I'm gonna say Jake, jury duty. When did you get involved with the process of jury duty? Was it after it had been sold? Was it cast?
Yeah, I came on right after it sold, right when they knew they could actually make it. I came on board and then helped with the showrunner, put a writer's room together, and I was there for that as well, because a lot of the writing for our show is like, you have to write. Our show has like a ton of great improvisational actors, obviously, but surprisingly, like 80% of what you see in the show was written. You know what I mean? And it was about how do you improv to get to those moments.
Mm.
And the writing process was very different and interesting because it took a long time, and it was, you not only had to write a funny line or a funny interaction, but then, it's kind of my job to go like, okay, now let's write the 8 hours leading up to that won't seem weird to him, that will let us get that line in a way that the show keeps going, and no one will see those 8 hours. You know what I mean? So that
Wow.
it was really like, you had to write the show, and then you had to write the reality that he was going to experience to try to give you the show, and then you had to be prepared for it to all change as you got to know him. So at a certain point, I kind of referred to it as like writing and directing by flowchart. Like, we have our A plan, we have our B plan, we have our C plan, you know what I mean? And just, be moving on the fly.
Well,
Were
what's
all the
it?
scripts written before you cast?
Sorry?
Were all the scripts written before you cast?
Yeah, and then I'm so proud of our cast. They're just the best. And we did then change some of the characters for our cast, because you would find people, we had a really unique callback process where, you can find someone who's a good actor, a good comedic actor who's good with improv, but there's this element of being with a real person that you have to know that they're not going to blow it and that they're brave enough to still go for jokes. So we devised a callback that was kind of testing actors with real people. And some actors came in and they were just so good at what they were doing. You went, well, that's not like the character we wrote, but he has to be in the show. So now that character is going to be like what he's doing here, because And it was about putting together the right group. You know, everyone needed to be a little different and add their own thing, and they all also needed to be good people because we were kind of, you know, putting a real person in the middle of it all. So it was a lot of factors to try to put it together. I don't even know if that's a question you asked me. I'm sorry.
Boots, I interrupted you. What were you gonna
Oh
say?
no, I was just gonna say, you know, you see a lot of TV shows where they've kind of jammed a line in there because it helps the thing, and you forgive it. But with this, I mean, were there any times when the dude was kind of like, "What? That's weird," you know, like, or was it just that great of writing that it always worked?
There were a couple times where kind of after a moment would happen, he maybe like to himself or to a confidant would be, I think we put one in the show where he's like, this feels like reality TV. This is crazy. And but I don't think to us, when we heard that, we were like, the show is over. Like he's onto us. But, you know, you would also kind of, Ronald is a very good, sweet, normal guy. And you would have to kind of be a psychopath to actually think the world's making a TV show that you're in the center of. So we were really worried he was catching on to us, but he was just expressing like, man, that was a really weird thing that person did. But, you know, that doesn't mean he's in the middle of a TV show to him. So we thought the show was ending every day. But once we got to talk to him after the reveal, we realized we were safer than we thought we were.
Wow, I was really blown away by the judge character. He was a real judge, right?
He was a real civil litigating attorney for 40 years. So he argued in front of judges in Chicago, and that is Ike Barinholtz's dad. And that's how we found him. And he has such an amazing story where when he was younger, he did stand-up. He went to theater school and he did stand-up comedy. And he wanted to pursue that. And then when him and his wife got pregnant, he said, you know what, I should probably get a real job, and went to law school. And he litigated for 40 years. And then this was always something he had in him where he's like, I always wish I would have tried maybe acting more. And then he got to mix his, you know, experience, his lifelong experience of being a lawyer, and kind of have this amazing second act where he came out and acted for us. And he is a huge part of the reason that the show works, because he was we referred to our reality bank. We had to build up our reality bank before we could try something crazy. We had to make the world seem very real and unquestionable. And a lot of that we don't show you in the show. We just show you the, you know, the fun stuff. But Alan Barinholtz, our judge, was a huge part of believing, of course, I'm in a real courtroom and this is a real case and that's a real judge.
Yeah, that felt incredible. Johnny, at what point did you come in on the process of Dreaming While Black? I mean, did you go out and pitch it? Did you write it? How did it come into shape for you?
With this in my aunt's bedroom, like while still living at my aunt's house. So 2016, I kind of got frustrated with just not getting a shot at anything. And I kind of saw the trailer for Insecure and I was like, oh damn, that was a web series. I should make a web series. And I was just like, yeah, let me just write a web series. And that took like 2 years to make. It was like save, shoot with friends of ours. And, you know, it's funny. Zoe was talking about like the death, because I was like, yeah, we're going to go viral. And like, this is it. And yeah, and like friends and family watch it. And I was like, damn, that was 2 years dead. But luckily, I went to a screening and like an actor was there who'd saw it and he was like, oh, yo, like my brother went to boarding school in Nigeria with this dude who's now an agent. Like, I should send him your stuff. And I was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, like a week later, I got signed. And ironically, which is why I feel like the show had this bite to it, because the only Black commissioner in the United Kingdom is the only person who said yes to this project.
Wow.
And we got no everywhere. Like it was just like, no, it's not really a comedy, it's not really a drama. So like basically we're not funny enough to be in a comedy team in the comedy department, but we're not like deep enough to be in a drama department. So we were just there. But luckily Sarah Asante saw it and was like, I think this is great. Let's commission a pilot. But in England, pilots actually get TX'd. So it's almost their way of like, how does the audience react to it to see if we
What
should
is
make it?
TX?
Yeah, does that tested?
That's like UK like lingo. So yeah, so they broadcast the pilots.
Oh,
That's
wow.
so cool.
Before you've made any more episodes?
Yeah. So like the pilot came out in 2021 and then the show came out in July. So it's because it's BBC's like government. It's like, oh, we want to see if the public want it. And yeah, I mean, we got it did really well. It did really well here. We won like a BAFTA for the pilot, and so
Oh
they're
my
like
God.
another one. So then we had to rush back and like invent what the hell would happen next. And yeah, luckily Showtime saw the pilot as well and was like, great, we can get this, like, let's just jump in now. So thankfully with the team at Showtime and BBC and A24, they were just like, yeah, let's go. So that was, and from there it kind of just snowballed. Because it's funny, we were speaking earlier about like where people see the show and how people watch, how you feel about it. And like, so I'm from Jamaica, and Showtime not in Jamaica, and I feel like Maggie just watch the thing like you know where to find it. Like, don't act like you don't know, you know. So yeah, it's great. But yeah, that was the process. It was a web series turned pilot turned show.
Wow. I mean, the pilot, did you feel like it was a little meta while you were doing it? I mean,
Oh no, the show writes itself. It might as well be a documentary. Like even after season one, I have meetings and sometimes people say things to me and I'm glad, I literally write about Black people trying to make it in the industry. Like this, it's not making sense.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's great. It just gives us more material all the time.
how about Beef, Jake Beef? When did you come in on that process?
Well, Sunny and I have been friends for years. So like I wasn't on the show when he was pitching it, but I was definitely talking him through, the pitches and how it went. And he had this sort of like dream, the once in a lifetime, like crazy bidding war experience off the pitch because he had Ali and he had Steven. I mean, he is brilliant. It was a great pitch. And Sunny does these like very elaborate, like half-hour long, like PowerPoint, like songs dropped into different parts pitch. He had the whole thing lined up. And so he had this like incredible pitching process, but then I came in when he was actually trying to make the show and they're having a lot of trouble with it. And I was like, I had a project fall apart. It's like, all right, let me help. I'll come help direct and figure this thing out with you. And it was sort of, I think, right at the beginning of Pratt, more or less, when like none of the schedules remotely fit any of it. And we had to really like kind of break the whole thing down and figure out how to actually make the thing. Yeah.
Were there any risks that you took that ended up paying off? Were there any times that you were in the middle
I
of that?
mean, like in Beef, I mean, like just any like story wise, production wise, like any of that. I mean, the main thing we had to do is we had to completely rip apart. Like the one thing we had was that Sunny had written everything, or at least 8 episodes. And so we had to just crossboard the whole thing. Like we couldn't go episode by episode, or we never would have been able to get to. He writes very filmically. It's a half-hour show that probably has more like hour-long drama pacing, but it's condensed into a half hour. So there's a ton of locations. And you really wanted that character. We were lucky enough to shoot in LA. And so like in order to get to all of those, like we just, there'd be like houses that would play in episode 3 and 7 and 8, but just for a few scenes, and you couldn't keep going back to them. So like the only way to really accomplish the show is like turn it more into a long movie and then make those first 8 episodes in one giant block while he tried to write episodes 9 and 10. I mean, I think the other risk, this is not on my part. I mean, I think Sunny took a lot of artistic risks and went for a lot of things, and really committed to, there's a version of, sorry, I don't want to, I mean, I guess I feel like I can say this because I just sort of proud of my friend and I didn't write it. So I don't want to just talk up the show, but I think like knowing what the premise was, like what I was so impressed by when I read it is that there's a very simple way to kind of deliver on the core promise of what the show is, which is like there's a road rage incident, and then at the end, like they play a prank on one another, and it's going to be spy versus spy and go back and forth. And you know, Sonny was interested in going so much further than that, and had so many other things that he wanted to talk about. And I think also really, like, I think a lot of people would have held a little bit more back, you know, like for a season 2 or something, but like really like pushed it to its furthest limits of like what that premise could yield. And I remember thinking that that was really sort of interesting and exciting, because you just don't see it done very much to like really get to push it as far as it went, and obviously like very exciting from a filmmaking perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I love beef, first of all, I should say
Thanks, man.
that. But I didn't say it because everybody loves beef. So you know, it's like I breathe it because it's really good. As you know, Stephen Yen is a friend of mine, so obviously, as he should have been very excited. I just want to know how many, you know, where is your shelf nearby with all the awards? Right.
Yeah, let's do that.
Sonny's got more than I'm back in Atlanta trying to make a thing, so I didn't bring any of the stuff with me.
But Steve,
Sonny's
and I'm
arranging
sorry
nice stuff, but
if you've said this already, but did you have a writer's room?
Yes. So we you know, they definitely were worried about me handling the whole amount. So we matter of fact, we had some amazing writers. I started out with the pilot and the whole season, all the story points of the season, but it just still was going to be a lot of work. So we had Z Chun, who is my co-showrunner, and he wrote episode 3, and we had Marcus Gardley, Whitney White, Michael R. Jackson, Pulitzer Prize winner. We had we had a lot of very smart people in there. Naima Ramos Chapman. So a lot of heads in there. It was for me that was a hard thing to communicate your ideas to other people, because even through music, it's like more for me the way it's more compartmentalized. So that was something that was, you know, a different thing for me, but it was fun because I'm usually you know, the way that I make stuff, it makes for a very lonely life normally, right? And so being able, it was during COVID, so we mainly did stuff on Zoom, but it was still cool to, and I had never done a writer's room before, so Z, who's very skilled at putting together writers' rooms, was smart enough to be like, we're only meeting for 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon, and so it never felt like a chore to be at. So yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. We did that also in Prodigal Son during both the second season. We wrote it all on Zoom, and it was the same sort of scenario, but you needed that break for your brain, right? I mean,
Zoom can be so exhausting. You can't do it like for 6-8 hours straight. You feel worse than almost any other experience. It's crazy.
Hey, do you have any funny stories that you could tell us about the first day of shooting? I'm so curious. I always find something happens on the first day of shooting that sticks with me on any show.
We set up the first day, day 1, week 1, of the pilot, and obviously everybody spent time loading up, everybody's gassed. Man, well, pray before the shoot, pray nothing don't go wrong, rate. And as soon as we're about to turn over, the owner of the parking lot was like, yo, what these trucks doing in the lot? And we're like, oh yeah, we're filming a show. Like, obviously we rent the space. And he's like, yeah, you never rent the car park.
Oh no.
So all the gaffer, you're talking all the lighting crew, everybody had to pack up the trucks.
Oh no.
Oh, wow.
That guy was just waiting to come talk to you right before you started.
Like, I don't even know where we fucking moved the trucks to, but like,
Oh,
it
wow.
was just, yeah. And so we started the first day 4 hours behind. And yeah, that kind of just tell you how the rest of the shoot went. Like,
You couldn't direct him to craft. He'd be like, hey, yo, have a sandwich.
the begging, no amount of begging would change his mind. Like, he's just like, no, come on the car park. So yeah, that was it.
So our first day, it wasn't funny, but only looking back at it, it was funny. It was there was a lot of I had to explain to, I explained the whole concept to Jarrell that, hey, you're going to be closer to the camera than this person, right? And, because we only had a short time to rehearse, we're not rehearsing in that way. I want the actors to, I wanted them to connect to each other. So when we started shooting, there was a lot of wait a minute, is this going to work? Am I going to look silly? Am I looking, like I'm not looking at the other person. I don't know what's happening. Does this look right on screen? All of that. And I just had to lie and say, yeah, it did look fine, because I honestly was like, like we did tests and stuff, but we didn't test every single situation. So a lot of it was, luck and the genius of our VFX supervisor, Todd Perry, who they had divided, Todd Perry and his whole team, they ended up devising an app just to measure rooms and figure out where we could put our camera and move the platform and all this kind of stuff. So it was exasperating at the time, but when we see like that those particular scenes are ones that the actors themselves and everybody loves, but it was just really crazy on the day.
Wow. I'm glad you mentioned rehearsal, because I was dying to ask Jury Duty, Jake, about the rehearsal process on Jury Duty. That must have been different, right?
It was very different. We did I wanted more rehearsal. We only had about 2.5 weeks. And the more we fought for it, we also realized you couldn't actually fully rehearse for it. You know what I mean? Like, because we didn't quite know exactly what would happen, but we rehearsed with all the actors, and we had stand-ins for Ronald, who would try to kind of move through the space. A lot of it was actually not only rehearsing the beats, like, okay, remember, we got to get to lunch, and at lunch you say this, but it was like, I mean, the show's real. Like, he did not know it was a show, and we really had one take with him. So kind of some of the things like basic coverage, like, was like really hard to nail sometimes. And so everyone makes fun of me, but I think on our first day of filming, I spent an hour before he got there just telling people where they had to sit and where they had to move and when people could get up and go to the waterfront and back, because we were trying to orchestrate where he needed to sit and not also look like a bunch of weird robots. And we were just worried that we were going to try this on day one and he was going to walk in right away and go, why is James Marsden sitting next to me with cameras filming me? Like, what's going on? So the crazy thing that happened for us day one is two things. We had actually pulled back some of our jokes we were planning. We were like, we're going to freak him out on day one. We got to ease him into this. So we were cutting bits. And Ronald got there and he did two things. One was we had picked him because he seemed like a nice guy who could be our moral compass. And when he sits down next to James Marsden and he finds out he's in the movie Sonic, he goes, oh yeah, I heard that movie sucked. And we were like, Who
Awesome.
wrote that joke for him? Why did he say that? Like, wait, maybe we don't know who this guy is. It was like incredible. We could not have counted on him doing that. So all of a sudden we're like, wait, that beat works perfect for like what James's next beat is. And then we had cut a beat about, one of our jurors really wanted to get out of jury duty. Noah, played by Mecky Leeper. And we had this whole bit written about, ask him. We had 5 or 6 different ways he could talk to Ronald to get Ronald to suggest, well, some people say a way to get out of jury duty is to tell the judge you're racist, right? And that's how you get out of jury duty. And we thought it was going to be too much work to get him to say that. So we cut that bit. And Mecky was also one of our writers, so he knew the show really well. And he got into a situation and he was talking with Ronald, and he just saw where the conversation was going and went, wait a minute, I think he'll do it. And so he just kind of went like, yeah, God, how could I get out of this thing? And Ronald literally line for line says a line we cut from the script because we were like, we can't get him to say this on day one. And he was like, well, on Family Guy, they try to get out of jury duty by saying you're racist. You could try that. And we were like, oh my God. So the crazy thing for us is we were so nervous. And then Ronald, who was our non-actor, started saying lines that we had cut. And then there was a paranoia of like, has some producer told him what's going on? And like, is he not really in on it? You know what I mean? Like, is he in on it? Like, we were blown away, but we had a lot of things just kind of going the right way for us on day one to a point where it almost freaked us out.
Are we all just pre-programmed by culture?
Yeah. Honestly, there's a lot of that. A lot of trying to guess how people are going to act or react, or what the polite way to react to someone is. That was a lot of the conversations on how to get through our story beats,
Yeah. How about you, Zoe? How was day one? And I gotta throw this question in there. Was there an intimacy coordinator on your set?
Yeah, for sure. Day one was, it's always like madness. We shot 7 episodes in 36 days, so it was really tight. And we also cross-boarded the whole thing, so we shot it like a film. But
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that again. You did what?
we shot 7 episodes in 36 days. Yes.
Wow. Okay.
It was wild. I mean, we had budgetary limitations, and I do come from, micro budget indie filmmaking. So when someone's like, you get to make it, but it's for like $5, I'm like, I can do it, whether that's a good or bad thing. But we did it. And so day one, of course, yeah, 1,000 things went wrong, but there's a lot of my character keeps returning to her home where her husband is, and it's a lot about like grief and in each of these worlds, seeing characters who now are different people from universe to universe, and the one constant really is May's best friend and the home that she shared with her husband. And so we were shooting outside a church, and my character was going to turn and then notice that somehow she had landed across the street from her home in this new universe on day one. But the home wasn't there. So we were going to shoot, this side out. And then once we were shooting exteriors of that home, we would shoot that side of the coverage. And of course, it was like thunderstorms, lightning, and it was just a disaster because it wasn't just like, how do we make this work within the scene itself? It was that like we weren't going to be able to match our coverage, which was like how it was a really important ending to our 3rd episode. But yeah, we like made it. We made it work somehow. You just like have to. And somehow, I mean, everyone was just drenched, but I was under some tiny little, flag that kept me dry for the short amount of time that we needed to make that match cut work. But yeah, that was the main disaster of day one.
And Jake,
I just want to say the intimacy coordinator.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had an amazing intimacy coordinator, and that's, I think, really key when you're shooting intimate scenes and sex scenes, and she was like very cool in terms of however much I wanted her input and however little, it was a very singular experience for her because it's rare that both the showrunner, the director, and the actor are in the sex scene itself. But so that was an interesting creative collaboration between the two of us. But really amazingly helpful because I was also there is a lot of match cutting in the show, and so I had these two really sweet, like 20-year-old dudes running over with a mini monitor while I was like in bed, so that I could make sure that my head was like in the perfect spot to match cut, and all those things. But she was so helpful because she was, another set of eyes, which when you're wearing that many hats is always really great. And she was very much about, just making sure that the communication between myself and my actors in these very intimate settings was really clear. But I think the thing that like many people don't know about sex scenes is that it's all, if done well, choreographed ahead of time and contractually so that like every actor knows, okay, this much of my body will be shown, this is the exact choreography of the scene, and their team then approves it, so that on the day there's very little left up to fate as it were. But we shot a lot of these sex scenes in oneers, so it was a really wild experience to make sure that all technical elements were at the level of expertise that they had to be, while performance was also being monitored, and choreography of such intimate scenes was like, had to be really specifically mapped.
Wow. We had a intimacy coordinator too, but our actors in our sex scene never touched each other.
That's right.
So it was strange. It was still needed because there's some exposure there, but yeah, that was maybe the weirder part, is that they're like in a room by themselves, almost by themselves, but with a doll, or
Right.
Interesting. Jake, when you were talking about beef, Jake, sorry. You talked about how the crossboarding that had to go down, and how much of a jigsaw puzzle it sounds like it was. Were you able to still, you think, get all the great performances that you wanted? And was there any kind of key to that for you?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Stephen wasn't through. I mean, for the actors, it's a bit of it's tough, to be that far out of order. I mean, I think that, it depends on really great writing, and I do sort of believe it never, like, of all the things to do, like, just knowing how good our cast was, like, I never worried about it that much, like, I know Stephen would talk about the difficulty, but then he was so good in the scenes, it was like, what are you talking about? Like, this is fine. I mean, it was, certainly, like, yeah, you show up on day one and you're shooting the final scene of episode 1 and the final scene of episode 2, like, right off the bat, and then a climactic scene from episode 7 on day 2. It's not like how you'd like to start, but I think, I'm sure everyone here, knowing people's stories, it's like, I've never been in a situation that was set up the way you really, really wanted it to be, like, you're always making something work. And if that's what it, like, I think Sunny and I really knew, like, what we'd be giving up if we weren't attempting to do it that way, which is we would have just had to cut so much of the show and the season that it was absolutely worth it. And I think, like, I always, like, really try to, like, on this show especially, I started, like, always walking around with a binder. Like, I don't use sides anymore, because it's so important to just have the whole script and really, really be cognizant of, like, what precedes that scene and what follows it, which sounds like extraordinarily basic and rudimentary, but I've definitely gone through the experience of just I don't know, people, like, sides are, any given day, like, they print out, like, the scenes for that day on a script, just those, and you can just go off of that, but you might forget exactly what precedes it, and your job is really to remind the actors, especially in a situation like that, like, exactly where you are in this, like, much, much longer story of a TV show, and, like, really just trying to keep an eye on that and making sure that Sunny and I discussed exactly where it went and what we were trying to get out of it. And Sonny really thinks, and he calls it a story math. You know, like he has this very like clinical approach to the kind of arcs and character trajectories. And so like there was such a kind of blueprint for what each scene was meant to achieve, you know, that like it was easy to find a guidepost for that amidst where you were, and then be able to remind the actors of where that guidepost was.
Did you end up staying through the whole post process? Obviously you did, right?
Yeah. I was starting to prep my next movie, so I was in and out of some of the mixes, but definitely all the way through the edit. I mean, that's such a crucial part of, you know, and also the only way to, I mean, I guess, yeah, you could either shoot a show like that, like if you're out of time, you know, and you could get a lot of coverage and move quickly, or, you know, like Sonny and I really wanted to shoot very specifically for the edit, and you need a showrunner that's okay with that and knows that they're going to have fewer options in post, and like can really commit to certain things on set, not just in terms of wonders, but it's like very carefully kind of constructed where every shot goes. But for that to work, like, yeah, like I really have to stay involved in the edit and make sure that things like really get put in the proper place.
Yeah. And you guys are still friends, right?
I did assume that it would end our friendship. I really, actually, genuinely, I was like, I knew we had been friends for a long time.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you know, it's rare to find, I think, like a showrunner like Sonny, who is also like extremely meticulous and cares deeply about the edit. We sort of set it up where like I would just really focus in my cutting time on like getting the structure of the thing in place, like because I care so much about that sort of shot structure and exactly what goes to what, but I wouldn't really dig into takes as much as I normally would if I were trying to finish something, but just so that I could move on. And then I would deliver Sonny the episode, and then he would go through, and then he'd be like, I don't think we need this, or he cut this. I'd be like, well, here's why we're doing that. So you could change that part, but that's why this starts here. And then he would also check every single take of everything and could kind of adjust the sort of pliability of those performances within that. And then I would have moved on to the next episode and we'd kind of double back and go through that. So it was like very, you know, I was certainly prepared for at some point him to be like, just get out of here, which would have been fine, and certainly is right. But like, yeah, it was a very nice, like healthy kind of balance of each pushing each other to make the thing as good as it could be. And, you know, I think the only way that works is if you know, like it's Sonny's show in the end, you know, there was never any question about that. So that makes you feel free to be like, hey, it's your show. I wouldn't do that cut, you know, but it's like, it varies very much. There's no like genuinely arguing over who gets to make that final decision, and that it lay with him. So.
Wow. I'm starting to get questions coming in from the people who are watching. So I have one for you, Jake, which is what's up for season 2?
I am sworn to, I would get in so much trouble if I answer that. I know Sonny's sort of just beginning to kind of work on that right now and think about ideas and where it could go, but I can't tip any hands on that one.
Oh, come on.
I know. Very sorry.
So Johnny, I would love to know kind of what your post-production process was like, because you made like you said, you made the pilot, but then you went back into the series. So how did all that work out for you?
It was a scramble. We you know, we don't have it's funny, you never have enough money, but like in the UK we really don't have enough money. So I ended up being across all of post, because at some, like after like a week the directors are out. So it's like, all right, cool, yeah, me and the editors and the execs just kind of barreling through them. And you know, it's interesting having different cooks. I always find that part interesting, just navigating as a new showrunner, but as someone who kind of came from making my own stuff. So like I had a web series, so even when sometimes people are trying to tell me, oh, this joke isn't funny, I'm like, well, maybe not to you, but like to me. So, so it's like, how do you navigate like making something for myself with just my friends, where basically nobody tells us anything, to like, no, you have execs giving you notes, and the execs notes are not the same as like BBC's notes. And then like A24 is kind of like, we don't agree. And then Showtime kind of, and And I'm just like, guys, I really need for us to figure out the notes before I come back.
Yeah.
You know, but it was great because I guess that constant interrogation of what is best always kind of works out to make the best thing in the end, but it does make for a like very long kind of editing process and like a lot of unpicking, which I mean is fine for the show, but like I have a child who's as like 4 months older than the show. So like
Yeah.
it was tough.
No, that's something that I would say that I like about independent filmmaking more than TV. TV has all of these processes that are baked in that some of them I think are outdated now, you know, that have to do with a different process. So, you know, so for instance, you know, going with the pitch thing, you know, my collaborators on the music are tune yards. They're friends of mine. They live down the street. And you know, I had a lot of the score before we pitched. So when we're in post, you know, I directed all the episodes. So I'm like, we edited Sorry to Bother You in 10 weeks. Let me edit this as 1 3-hour and 15-minute movie, you know, split up. And then you guys give me the notes. But the way that it's done, because it's normally different director on everything, is you do it an episode, you turn that in, studio gives you notes, you take that back, you do something, then you give it to the network. You know, it's all this back and forth. So it was like a long time. And, you know, and then you do music, even though we had, you know, there are these ways that I think cost more money, you know, in the end, right? But that are built for one certain way of doing it. There's like on episode 6, there's a thing that it's mainly Walton Goggins in it, and there's a part that definitely would have been a lot better if I had 30 frames more in the episode. But because all the contracts were, you know, I didn't know how all the contracts are done where the episode can only be this many minutes to the frame, or else it costs twice as much. You know, it just kind of doesn't make sense creatively. Like, and then we had other episodes, obviously, that made up for that. And but they just did the contracts in the old like broadcast way, as opposed to, you know, just something more creative. Because even you know, Walton was like, oh, that scene was better when you showed it to me before. And I was like, yeah, we had to get those frames out of there, you know. So
Wait, Boots, what were you saying about the way you pitched it? Like,
so I had a combination. So I use music. I use the score. I use pictures. I use all sorts of things. I act things out. I just do whatever to make to get across what we're getting across, right? And so I had pieces of the score already as I'm writing. I'll call up Meryl and Nate and be like, oh, I'm thinking this, you know. And then where I didn't have those pieces, I just had a record player right here, and I put on a Philip Glass thing or something for a different part of the pitch. And you know, it's just, you just make it a show, because I, you know, come from that part of it. But also just because all of these things help me figure it out. You know, we had a certain amount of things storyboarded already, because you know, I'm right here where ILM is. So I had gone to actually one of the ways we were able to make people comfortable with it without everyone arguing that that's not the way you were supposed to do it, as I went over to ILM and I got John Knoll, who's, you know, from Empire Strikes Back, and I got Phil Tippett and Dennis Murin to say, this is a good way to do it, and you can save money on it. And so they sent emails saying that, even though privately Phil Tippett was like, don't do that, you know. But
Liz, we have a question that's come in for you. Kelly Turner's asking if you can speak about how you plan on incorporating Bay Area culture in your projects. Would you say that the Bay Area is a
oh, it's definitely in there. I don't necessarily plan on it. It just, you know, is, you know, if I'm thinking of a thing, it's gonna be part. Well, one, I set the location here, even though really, that's a whole nother story. We filmed the interiors in New Orleans and filmed like 7 or 8 days of exteriors here in Oakland. But yeah, I'm setting it here. I don't know if I mechanically think about that. I mean, you know, like there's a side show that happens in it, so that's definitely Bay Area, but I'm not necessarily I'm the characters are there, so that's just that ends up being part of it, like just what would really happen. Like if I had characters in Paris, I don't know Paris, so I'd get it wrong, but I'd figure out what was real about that. And so, you know, I just write what I know, and that gets in there. And it's you know, and so you know, sometimes talking to the actors about it, and figuring those things out. You know, yeah. So that's where it all, and you know, that's the kind of filmmaker that I look up to, like not only, but like the Jim Jarmusch's and Spike Lee and you know, and John Waters, like people, you know, like the thing is of a place, right? And that affects it, and to me that makes it more real. And I think, you know, I think a lot of people would do that if they could, but so you know, because of the way film and TV is made, often you see, you know, you have a lot of pieces of art that are every place and no place, you know. And I don't know, I think we lose something for that.
Yeah, a lot of times I feel like you find the people who let you make movies and TV shows only know their way to make it. You know what I mean? So they're like, you can make it. And you're like, great, I'm excited. And then as soon as you try to step outside of what they expect a schedule to be or days to be, that they don't know how to deal with that. So it can be a battle and a process every time of trying to fit in what they expect, because you're excited to still make something, even though it's not maybe the best way to make it all the time.
Yeah, maybe this contraction in our business will help a little bit with that. People need to get a little bit more creative. I'm talking about on that side. I mean, I feel like as independent filmmakers, many of you, you're already there. They need to catch up, right? There's a question for Johnny. Could you speak a bit more about the casting of your series? They knew, this person says, and this is anonymous, so I don't know who this is. But they said that a few of the cast were from the web series, but how did you initially meet them and go about finding the rest of the actors?
Okay, yeah, dope. Yeah, it's weird. Like I said, when the web series, to be honest, the web series, like 90% of the cast was like friends from film school or like architecture school. We just couldn't afford anybody. But the few actors who we did have in key roles, it was that weird thing of like, when we got the show to BBC, we were like, dope, so we'll have this show. And they're like, yeah, we want it. And I'm like, sick. And they're like, cool, let's talk about cast. And I'm like, don't worry, we have the cast already. And they're like, no. What's that thing of they're like, oh yeah, you only have who you have because you can afford them. But no, you can't afford anybody. So it was weird. So everybody actually had to like re-audition for their roles. But thankfully, Danny Mosley, who plays Amy in the show, like Pablo's best friend, she obviously rewrote it with the actor in mind. So obviously, like whoever would reference the show would have to reference another actor. Something like might as well. So thankfully, she got back that part. But for us, it was a interesting dialogue with the network because, you know, obviously their whole thing is about eyeballs and, you know, stars get eyeballs. And we were like, oh, but we want the show feel like the real world. So if we get a star, then it no feel like a show. It no feel unreal because like we reference famous actors all the time. So I'm like, we can't then like reference Idris Elba, but then no cast him as the like so we kind of went out of our way and just like opened up the pool to like non-agents. Like it was very public, like our casting director was very public about it, like look, like open auditions for many roles. So like a lot of that's how like even our Nigerian characters, like the auntie who played Auntie Lola is like, you know, I guess for cultural specificity as well, because so I'm Jamaican, so like to write a British Jamaican family is easy because, you know, I can vet accents myself and be like, no. But for the Nigerian characters, what we ended up doing is actually we wrote with like Google Translate and friends, like we wrote all the Nigerian characters' lines in Yoruba. So from jump with the self-tape, if you didn't come in speaking Yoruba, then it's not your role. So that was kind of vetted. And for the Jamaican, like for the older generation who was supposed to play his family, I wrote in patois as well. So that was almost like our like sieve of like who's really about this life. So that kind of helped us massively actually in keeping the cast off.
Did they get on board pretty quickly, or were you fighting that fight for a long time, trying to avoid known entities?
Yeah, it was a fight. But I feel like especially, but the beauty was, I guess, because I was the showrunner, like, especially in casting, when I was like, when she's like, oh, we need sides, I was like, yeah, you don't need to email everybody. Just ask. So that was actually a way how we got around laws of that. It's like, yeah, no, I'll send you the sides. But yeah, it was interesting. But again, yeah, obviously it paid off in that like the representation of the characters. I feel like you guys were speaking to about like place, like the physical location of a space, but like Black British people's history is quite different in that everybody is actually from another place. So there's no Black British person in the way that you have African American people. Like everybody is second, third gen Caribbean, African, Asian. So like getting that, like rooting the characters in a historical place of even amongst like my generation, like we all speak in British accents, but like even in our lingo, depending on where you're from, like my cousin said Wagwan, or my Nigerian friend said how far. And so it's used getting people from the actual place to like just reinforce the authenticity so that like our own people connect with it, you know.
I have to say, there were times when I was watching it and I was just like, oh, it's so cringy. Like, I get it. It was so, but that was like the funny parts, right? Because the microaggressions that you play in that is interesting to me. I mean, was that part of the web series that you just carried through? It seems like it's such an important part of the creation of this world.
You know what? To be honest, I feel like the web series was born out of frustration of like, these white people are not going to let me in the industry. I'm going to tell them about themselves. But by the time we got to the series, I was kind of like, you know what, man? I don't care. So actually, none of y'all have a major plot point. Like, we're just going to add you for jokes. That's it. Like, and so we were really intentional of just making fun, almost like inverting like the Black best friend and just have like white best friends dotted around the place vibes. So, but yeah, we were super intentional about it. And it was important for us to skew the world where we centered ourselves. So, because for me, like racism is crazy. It's actually a nonsensical concept to be racist, right? So we were just like, oh, let's just skew the lens to show everybody this is crazy, and also allow some like levity to the actual experience. So like, you know, because like when it happens to you in real life, it kind of feels shit. But you know, we're just like, oh, don't worry, like it's not you, it's them. Like, so that was really our intention, just to have fun and just kind of just let kind of Black British people know, like, don't worry, bro, you're not crazy. It's them.
I appreciated it. Though there's a question that's come in for you, which is about the, you know, the Roku tax issue. Okay. So this person is really curious, and I'll just read what it says. I used to be a book publisher, and it was standard procedure that when a publisher took a book out of print, the author could request a reversion of the rights. Is that not possible in the TV world?
No, we can retain the rights and find a new home. I think that what's difficult in the TV world right now is that it feels, even though in this room this room disproves this point, but it does feel even more risk averse post strike to me. It feels like the contraction is like pushing streamers to focus on comedy that is closer to broadcast, because they're trying to reach 250 million subscribers, and so I think that that's more, it's not an issue of rights, it's sort of an issue of the marketplace. Like I'm not giving up hope, but I am just cognizant, I think, of what this specific inflection point means for artists in this particular space. And even just talking to people at the streamers who are like, this is kind of from on high what we're looking for. And it feels like a little sad to me, but I'm hopeful that, you know, artists like the ones in this room are just going to keep pushing to make things that feel singular and singular in voice and vision. Because I think what I always talk about is like, the second you try to make something universal, it's going to be incredibly boring. When you make something that's really specific in terms of perspective, it actually finds its universality. That's the whole point of the human experience, is that if you're writing about the singularity of your experience or of someone's experience, that's going to speak to humanity on a broader level. And so I do hope that that the gatekeepers, you know, will continue to allow for the specificity of voice and perspective that makes art exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the pleasure of working with John Singleton, Boys in the Hood, and getting to know him very well. And he has a quote that I have here on my wall in my office, which is, you know, specificity is universal.
Yeah.
And that was something that he truly, truly believed in. So I think you're right. We have a general question, so anybody just hop in here. It's from an anonymous person. I'm always curious about people who are anonymous. Was there any interaction product placement in your shows? And if so, what was it like working with these companies? Okay, I'm from broadcast. I'm not going to say anything. Y'all talk.
We had a couple. I wonder, because Boots, you were Amazon too. Did you have any crazy product placement conversations?
No, they didn't try to have that conversation.
Boots would shut that conversation down.
We
You didn't have to figure out how to put Niecy Nash in an ADT commercial in the middle of Rookie Fans, because that's what I was doing last year.
The thing with Jury Duty was, because we had a real person in the mix at the center of our show, we couldn't have any generic props. Like everything had to be real. Like we couldn't hand him a generic bottle that said water. You know what I mean? Like that would be weird. So we were really worried about that. And so I think they did work out a deal with like you know, whoever was in our vending machines was probably all owned by the same company or something like that, because we needed real products. But I do remember, and I don't think this ended up happening. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this, but it was a very like weird future conversation where they were like, hey, there might be some technology coming out, you know, because Amazon owned the company that made our show. And they're like, we might be able to like replace products in the show. So like if you have a bottle of Dasani water, we might be able to turn it into an Aquafina bottle, depending on like who's watching it or something. So like, can
What?
you, and I don't think they did it, but I was like having this conversation at one point, and I think someone was just like, hey, so is he gonna, you know, will someone be drinking a bottle here? And I was just like, it was very freeing to be like, hey guys, I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do, so maybe don't plan on this. Like I was trying to kind of able to shut it down, but I was like given a glimpse into where things might be in 10 years for maybe I'm not
That's
supposed to talk about that, but that was
crazy.
like a crazy future conversation that came up for like 2 days and then kind of went away.
I was on a show called Life in Pieces on CBS. It was like a network sitcom for many years as an actor. And I had to like fully do a hotels.com commercial within the show itself. So like in a scene with Colin Hanks, my scene partner, I had to be like, and have you seen hotels.com? What you can get on that site? Like
That's in the dialogue.
it was in the dialogue. Yeah. And it was yeah, it was bleak.
I saw some recent movies, some recent blockbusters where they did that, and I know people in them, so I'm just not going to talk about them. But you know, yeah, they're doing that. But I thought maybe I was like just paranoid, and that just happened to be like to have some real references. But you're saying they did that.
Yeah, yeah, they did that. I made a movie many years ago, Fox Searchlight, called Lola Versus, and we needed money, and Four Loko offered us sponsorship. I don't even remember Four Loko. It was a drink that killed people. We were like, all right,
Hence the name.
we need the money.
For me,
Gotta
part
do
of the
it.
fun is making fake products for the show. You know, like
The burgers.
crazy labels, burgers, yeah, the clothing company, you know, all of that sort of stuff. I don't know
I was
that.
jealous of those commercials you got to make.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
I was like, oh, that's fun. That's good.
yeah. No, those are fun. Yeah, they kind of allow you to do little skits, you know, and break away and do those things. You know?
Even so much, I think world building, right? Like developing your world even more. Because I guess for me, like, you know, with the comedy, so we had in the background, we had posters of like gentrified food. So like you could get 2-minute microwave jollof rice or like 2-minute microwave rice and people and goat.
That's cool.
And it was always like just these like white women modeling or like white men modeling. But it's like deep in the background. Which is weird because like everybody on set loved it, and then you kind of watch the show and like nobody on Twitter not talking about it. And I'm like, guys, y'all need you gotta look at the
Oh,
soft.
you got to cut away to that.
But I think that was part of it where it's like, oh, we can make up like our own
Well,
post, like everything, we like world building, right? And like
yeah.
tell you in the background, which like 2 people see, and like no, then everybody sees it. But no, it was no, I love that part of like the world building and what you can, or like even in costume, like we ended up having Amy, the character who plays Amy, her jewelry, because she always wears like elaborate jewelry, like her clothes actually told what the scene is gonna do.
Oh man.
So like even in the scene where she like quit, it's like her necklace says enough is enough, but you don't really clock it till I didn't personally see it till the edit, and I had to call and be like, "Yo, did you plant this in the scene consciously?" And she's like, "Oh, you're just seeing that." And I was like, "All right, cool." So that's what I love about like in the invention of like the world building, right? Is that you can do so much storytelling in the background as well as like with dialogue.
I love that. I recently got a hat that says I can see through your bullshit. And I just keep thinking, should I wear this to set? It's gonna make people feel. Well, you know, we have had such a lovely time getting to know you all. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're wrapping up. So any final words before we sign off and say goodbye?
I just wanted to say what a pleasure it was to be included in this group. I'm very gun shy. I think you guys all make such great stuff, and I think it's really. I do think we're also reaching a point where it feels like the audience is kind of hungry for more original stuff, and I think that's really exciting. And if we can get more people to realize that, we have a chance to make more unique, original stuff, which all you guys do. So that's hopefully really fun in our future for more amazing singular stuff.
I think you're right. You're all winners to me. Every single one of you deserves this award. Thank you so very much for coming.
Thank
And
you.
everybody have a great night.